divided up into pieces 100 years ago or so. A certain group was a little bit better defending economic liberty, and another group could defend personal liberty a little bit better. And yet they never seem to agree that we ought to protect both. If there's anything that I would like to see come out of this campaign is to plant the seeds of an idea that really the time has come for, and that is freedom is a unified issue. We want to have economic and personal liberty, only one thing, protecting all liberty. That's what gives us a free society. That's what gives us a prosperous society. That is what releases creative energy. And of course, there will not be equality. There will be differences. Some people will be rich, but let me guarantee you one thing, there will be fewer poor people. And at the rate we're going today, we're going to have less freedom and a lot more poor people. So there's every reason to believe that we can handle this because we have our traditions. We can look at what we've had in the past and respect for personal liberty, respect for private property, and go in this direction. Other countries, when they fail, they have a more difficult time. The Soviet system collapsed, not because we had to beat them in a nuclear war, but because of economic crisis. It just caved in, but they didn't have our traditions and they're struggling. In our case, all we have to do is just, catch our breath and do the right things. And that is why I have been so delighted last year that this new generation have looked at these viewpoints and they have looked at the book that I put out summarizing these, a manifesto about the revolution, and they're saying, yes, this makes sense. And if it makes sense, it's worthwhile. And I am convinced it is worthwhile. And I want to thank all of you who have come today and joined in this revolution. Thank you. Some of you will be leaving at 3 o'clock. I think I'll be signing some books and doing another interview. But I have agreed to take some questions from the students. So I believe there's a microphone. Anybody see a mic? There's a microphone. And just do one thing, speak into that microphone and speak loudly so I can hear your question. Anybody here have some questions?
There's one over there. Get down. Break the ice.
My ideas about it. Okay, on Iraq, to expand a little bit on that, on getting out of Iraq, I would come home as soon as possible.
Yeah!
Sometimes they were trying to explain, all the minutiae of coming and going and when we were going to leave. So I summarized my position on Iraq about coming home. I said, we just marched in, we ought to just march out. My argument, of course, it's an illegal war and it's not going well. And they talk about the 4,000 that have been killed, Americans. But there's a lot more than that. If you take the men and women that have been killed in Afghanistan, plus well over 1,000, contractors, Americans. So we're way over 5,000. But think of the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands of others, Iraqis, that have been killed too. And we're not there with a honest reason to be there. I mean, it has been devastating. So the sooner we come home, the better.
I had a question about global warming issues.
Closer.
The global warming issues.
Okay.
What would you do about that?
In Washington, no sweat, we'll pass a resolution. Take care of that.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think it's a complex issue. And the one thing I would urge all of you about global warming and environmental issues, especially on global warming, is to study the issue. Because there's two sides of that argument. And when everybody seems to agree progress that causes it, it's all due to man, then you have to be a little suspicious. Man does contribute to global warming. And when he does, and we know it, we should curtail it, because in the free market you have no right to pollute your neighbor's air or water, and therefore it should be curtailed through property rights. In the early part of our industrial revolution, big business and corporations, big business and governments were the greatest polluters, and government generally protected a lot of corporations in their pollution. But the one thing you can't ignore, I think we just recently had a volcano erupt, and if you look at a volcano and look at that ash going up, I mean, I've seen some statistic that if it's a major volcano, it might be equivalent to man's pollution of 20 years. You know, so if you ask me what I'm going to do about the volcanoes, I would say maybe say a prayer, but not a whole lot more.
One thing we can't control.
Okay, I have a question. What made you want to run for president in the first place? Like, what impacted your life so seriously that made you say, I want to change this country?
Okay, what made me want to run for president? And I think I may have mentioned that I was very reluctant to get involved, arguing the case that the country really wasn't ready for me. One thing I've learned is young people are ready for me, but we have to get the rest of them caught up to us. But when I first ran for office, it was mainly economic issues, dealing with the monetary policy in the 1970s, and I believe it would lead to serious economic problems that we're facing today with a very weak dollar. But probably the convincing thing for me to run in the presidential race had to do with the war and foreign policy, because I had been fighting against the war starting for 5 years. In 1998, we had a resolution passed. It was called the Iraq Liberation Act, and it said it would be the policy of the United States to get rid of Saddam Hussein and change that country. And I said at the time, I took the time in opposition to that, and I said, this is going to lead to war. So from 1998, and that was of course the previous administration, up to 2003, I argued the case against it. But of course it was 9/11 that was used as the excuse for 9/11, for going into Iraq. And Iraq and Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. So, foreign policy and trying to stop this war and make sure the war doesn't spread into Iran that motivated me most. And yet today, I would have to say in the past year, although I can look for some successes, I would have to say that I have not been able to change the minds of many of those individuals in Washington who are only too eager to spread the war, and I consider that dangerous.
Which government program do you think needs immediate reform?
Okay, I'm not quite getting that.
In your opinion, which government programs do you think need immediate reform?
Need reformed?
Yeah.
All of them. If you take the even the ones that are legitimate, like the State Department, the Defense Department, the Justice Department, there's probably still inefficiencies there. Government by nature will be inefficient, and we do read story about certain judges and different things doing the wrong things. But the other thing is it's going to take a lot more than just reform, because they weren't intended to really be part of our government. But you know, I see that problem a little bit differently than just reforming and sending different people there to tinker and manage things better. Because what I see as the problem is a philosophic problem. What should the role of government be? What kind of government do you want? Do you want a government to take care of you from cradle to grave and run the economy and police the world? Or do you want a government to protect your liberties? So that is the question that you have to